Hey, we back with another banger video. This a part of the installment I'm doing on HIV. This one really not just talking about HIV, but it's also talking about how a lot of doctors, basically, who have found cures to many viruses like HIV. What's the other one? God dang, I can't even think of it. Herpes, that one, and a lot of other diseases, and how a lot of these doctors mysteriously just ended up deceased. And I mean, it could be a coincidence, or it could not be a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, I ain't gonna hold y'all too long. Let's get into this first clip.
Of Dr. Sebi, an herbalist who dared to challenge the system and paid the ultimate price.
Mysterious death comes just weeks after a string of other deaths involving doctors who also practiced alternative medicine.
And these cases are now raising concern about the safety of other doctors.
Dr. Bruce Hedendahl, Dr. Jeff Bradstreet, and Dr. Teresa Ann Sievers, all three alternative medicine specialists, all three found dead in the span of 2 weeks. Bradstreet's practice had been raided by the FDA days before his tragic death. Then there's Dr. Bruce Hedendahl of Boca Raton. He was found in his car dead on Father's Day. He hadn't been in a car accident. The car wasn't even running. Still no word yet on how he died. But the list doesn't stop there. 2 more doctors have vanished since last Monday. Dr. Patrick Fitzpatrick of North Dakota and Dr. Jeffrey Whiteside from Wisconsin.
It's possible that they could come for me because I'm very outspoken about it. But if you ever hear that something happened, that I died, I'm not depressed, I didn't commit suicide, something happens to me, it's because I've been telling the truth.
I was supposed to be interviewing Dr. Rashid Buttar right now, and I literally just found out right now that he's not going to be on today's show because he is deceased.
Buttar, the British-American physician who was responsible for waking up millions of people to the truth about Big Pharma and the globalist agenda, was found dead on May the 18th. He was 57 and in supremely good health. He was also the subject of an unprecedented and vicious attack by the mainstream media.
I think you're crazy.
We are living through a full frontal assault on truth and decency, a time when lies are peddled as self-evident truths, and anybody daring to tell the truth about the real agenda of the elites is slandered, vilified, attacked as insane, or even worse. Due to the exceptionally high death rate among holistic doctors, he made sure to tell his followers that if anything happened to him, it was not natural. This video was released the day before he was found dead. Watch this.
It's possible that they could come for me because...
But y'all seen that? That's crazy. And there's more on the story about the last doctor too. It's a longer story, but it's crazy how he got up there and literally said, I will never unalive myself. If something happens to me, y'all know what it is. And then something happened to him. Crazy. But this one right here basically shows us one of the leading cause of death. This is crazy right here. Check this out.
The third leading cause of death in the United States. And I'm sure most of us could figure it's either heart-related or cancer or diabetes, things like that. Can you clue us into what that is and why?
Yeah, okay, and thank you for asking that, because this is the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room that nobody's talking about. The third leading cause of death, as published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, is MD-directed treatments. This means you go to a medical doctor, an MD, he gives you a treatment and you die from it. According to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, 15,000 Medicare patients a month are killed by MD treatment, and nobody goes to jail. A handful of terrorists fly 2 planes into the Twin Towers. 3,500 people die, and we go to war. But 15,000 people a month are killed by medical doctor treatments, and we don't bat an eyelash. This is because we have been, I don't want to say brainwashed, that's not the correct term, but we have been, for the last 100 years, kind of led into this false belief. I think it was Marcus Welby that started it, that the medical doctor is king and knows everything about everything. And really, you need to just shut up and follow your medical doctor's advice. Most people in the United States have no idea at all of the history of the evolution of medicine in the United States. In the early 1900s, it was a relatively level playing field between the chiropractors, the osteopaths, the homeopaths, and the MDs. In 1915, 1920, there was something called the Flexner Report. the Carnegie Corporation funded this man named Abraham Flexner. He went all around the country, and he went on stagecoach and train and horseback. This was before the interstate highway system, right? Took Flexner 5 years to do this. He went all around the country and did an inventory of all of the medical schools that prescribed drugs. He brought the list back to the Carnegies, who own drug companies, and then the Carnegies and the Rockefellers gave millions of dollars of free money to the medical schools and hospitals in the United States that were prescribing drugs. That was the beginning of the end. After the Flexner report, there was no more level playing field in the United States. And the MDs started a juggernaut that's taken off. Most people in the United States think that the predominant medicine here, MD-directed pharmaceutical medicine, we think that those guys are top dog because their therapeutics are better than the homeopaths or the naturopaths or the chiropractors.
Now,
it's not.
Basically, treatment from physicians is a leading cause of death. To me, that is completely outrageous. You know what I'm saying? You can't really make this up. This shows you that something's just not right, man. Something is not right. You feel what I'm saying? But this last one, it basically goes over. I know y'all remember that plane crash. They literally had footage of it. The plane was literally just coming down like this. Boom. They had footage. I never seen footage that up close of a plane crashing. It was just coming down. Boom. But come to find out, there was a lot of doctors on that plane that was going to you know what? I'll let them explain it.
So there's been a lot more information coming out about that plane that tragically crashed in Brazil. So far, a total of 62 bodies have been recovered from the plane crash wreckage. But it's been determined that 8 different cancer doctors were on the plane that crashed. They were on their way to a conference. Now, initially, about 15 doctors were scheduled to be on the flight, but 7 of them changed to an earlier departure that day. Those doctors were traveling to Sao Paulo to attend the SBTMO 2024 Cancer and Vaccine Conference.
So out of the 62 people that died in Brazil, 8 of them were doctors. And on that flight, there were supposed to be 17 doctors all going to a conference. And the 8 doctors were all cancer doctors that worked on cancer treatments. In fact, they were the ones that decided what type of treatments were used, what was legitimate, what was not legitimate. And one of the doctors actually has a YouTube page where they were proactive and seeking out and promoting natural health that fought off cancer without any of the pharmaceutical drugs. It's not a coincidence at all. You have Pfizer and other companies that are coming out with cancer drugs, and then once again you have doctors that want to save the world being unalived by evil men. And we, the handful of us and the followers who follow passionately and repost, are the only ones screaming up about this. And a handful of old, greedy, stingy, evil men and women, CEOs, shareholders, and the people who make decisions have decided that money is more important than your life. Because you're just a regular old slave person in the matrix, meant to work until you die. Buy the poison, eat the poison, watch the poison, sit, be numb, don't worry about anything.
But as we have seen time and time again, when it comes to these major airliner crashes, there happens to be some rather interesting people on board those planes, and this time it would be no different. Reading from this article from The Independent, it says, 8 cancer doctors among those who lost their lives in Brazil plane crash, as 7 others changed flight at last minute. So yes, there was supposed to be 15 oncology doctors, cancer doctors on board Vopaz Flight 2283. 7 of those backed out last minute and caught an earlier flight. Now, it is not stated as to why these other doctors caught an earlier flight, but luckily they did because it happened to save their lives. This is something that is rather eerily similar to Flight MH17, the Malaysian airliner that was supposedly hit by a missile. When something like this happens, many people like to bring up MH370 because MH370 had over 20 superconductor scientists on board when it went missing. We should also mention MH17 as well, a flight where everybody lost their lives on board back in 2014, but over 100 of those people were top researchers when it came to AIDS. That is something that's often swept under the rug. Reading this article from The Independent, it says, there are fears the cure for AIDS could have been lost, with hundreds of the best and brightest scientists and researchers on board Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. Joop Lang, a world-renowned researcher and former president of the International AIDS Society, was with the group heading to the Global AIDS 2014 conference in Melbourne, Australia. Trevor Stratton, a Canadian HIV researcher attending the conference, told ABC researchers that they had been getting close to a jab against AIDS, and he said, "What if the cure for AIDS was on the plane? Really, we do not know," he said. There were some really prominent researchers that have been doing this for a very long time, and we're getting close to jabs, and people are talking about cures and the end of AIDS. There were even those who were close to Joop that said there was going to be a major announcement. A major breakthrough was going to be announced at this conference, and it never came to pass. People who knew of this breakthrough are now keeping quiet. This is something that has played out all throughout history. Whenever a mode of transportation experiences a major catastrophe, you will find out there are a group of people on that mode of transportation that do have something interesting in common. Remember that very bizarre story that came out where a group of scientists and environmentalists were on a plane heading to East Ohio after the train derailment. Supposedly, they were going to test the water after the train derailment. Their plane crashed. Everybody on board that plane perished. People found out. They said, what's going on here? There's a big cover-up here when it comes to the water. News and media came back. They pushed back and said, no, that's just a conspiracy theory. Those scientists, those environmentalists, they were not testing the waters. What they were actually doing, they were going to a plant in East Ohio to test the metals after an explosion. So since the fact checkers came out, that story was also swept under the rug. You can go all the way back to the Titanic and find out there were passengers, multiple passengers, who were fighting the Federal Reserve. They were fighting against JP Morgan, and they all lost their lives when the Titanic had sunk. We're saying this because we have seen this time and time again. It is not a conspiracy theory, it is now a pattern. These 8 doctors did not even need to have the cure for cancer, because there are many different types of cancers. I am sure one cure will not cure all. But what if these doctors were working on something big, some rather big research, where they found a link to what's causing this major increase, this major rise, this explosion of cancer rates in young people around the world?
But y'all see what I'm talking about? That to me is crazy. You got all these doctors on here who's looking for a cure to many diseases that could be cured, that we don't have a cure for, and look what happened to them. You know what I'm saying? This is wild stuff going on right here. You feel me? But yeah, y'all tell me what y'all think about that video in the comments, man. If y'all have any clips or anything like that, send them to my Instagram. You feel me? 200_acres. I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, send them to my Instagram. I got y'all. But yeah, man, thank you guys for watching the video. See you guys next video. Always remember, be safe out here, kings and queens. Let's get it.